there, you're watching All 24 News World News program, and up next are tonight's top stories. Tensions flare as the occupation drags its feet on releasing Palestinian prisoners. Hamas warns that the truce is on the line, while the Prisoners Club slams the delay as organized terrorism. Rolling into Jenin for the first time since 2002, the entity deploys tanks in the city, ramping up its aggression in Tulkarm for the 28 days straight. Meanwhile, mass displacement orders hit 3 refugee camps in the northern West Bank. Also in our news, thousands of Lebanese pay their final respect to Hezbollah's former leader as his successor vows to carry on Hezbollah's or Hassan Nasrallah's path. And later on in Russia-Ukraine file, Zelensky hints he might step down if it helps Ukraine NATO dream as ceasefire talks push forward. This and more shortly. Welcome back to the details. Leading our news tonight, the Zionist occupation has reneged on its commitment, refusing to release Palestinian prisoners in the 7th phase of the exchange deal. This blatant violation stalls on agreement meant to free over 600 Palestinian detainees in exchange for 6 prisoners and 4 Zionist bodies held by the resistance. Anger and frustration ripple through the families of those still imprisoned. They accuse mediators of failing to hold the occupation accountable, seeing this delay not just as breach of trust, but as a collective punishment.
These prisoners are in a state of anger, sorrow, and resentment. The mediators must fulfill their role as they started it, so that families can rejoice in the release of their loved ones, who were supposed to be freed today.
We were just shocked by the decision that no prisoners will be released today. Netanyahu's office says it is a punishment for us, that our prisoners will not be freed, and that we will be penalized while they continue to delay their release.
In the same context, this blatant obstruction puts the entire first phase of the deal at risk, deepening frustration and uncertainty. Meanwhile, families of the detainees voice their outrage, demanding accountability. For the full story, we turn to Karim Faz-Zakri now.
The postponement of the 7th batch of Palestinian prisoners' release, unilaterally decided by the Zionist entity, struck like a thunderbolt. Families of the detainees, along with Palestinians across the West Bank and Gaza, erupted in outrage, denouncing the move as an unjust and arbitrary betrayal.
My son has been behind bars since November. We've been standing here since 9 in the morning, clinging to hope that they would all be free. But Netanyahu keeps playing for time. They returned his prisoners, so why backtrack on the agreement? Why? The delay in releasing our prisoners is nothing but an act of pure malice. It's driven by hatred. These are war criminals we're dealing with.
They want Palestinian families to know happiness. They want to break them, to strip them of any moment of joy.
The delay in releasing our prisoners is nothing but an act of pure malice. It's driven by hatred. These are war criminals we're dealing with.
Under the terms of the exchange, 620 Palestinian prisoners were set to be freed. According to the Prisoners Information Office, the list included 151 Palestinians serving life sentences and 445 Gaza residents detained in the aftermath of October 7, 2023. Additionally, 24 Palestinians, among them women and children, were due for release in return for the remains of Zionist prisoners previously handed over by Hamas.
From the outset, we feared Israel would renege on this deal. What happened yesterday is unacceptable, not just for us, but also for the mediators, the Egyptians and the Qataris. The world is watching, expecting this first phase of the agreement to be completed within 42 days. The prisoner handovers have rattled Israel's political, security and military establishment because they expose a hard truth. Palestinian resistance remains intact, organized and unbroken. This war has failed to erase Hamas.
Hamas, having honored its commitment on Saturday by transferring 6 Zionist prisoners to the ICRC, swiftly condemned the delay, calling it a blatant violation of the January 19 ceasefire agreement. The movement urged mediators and guarantors of the deal to ramp up pressure on the occupying power, compelling it to abide by the terms and implement the agreement without any further delay.
Hamas has condemned the Zionist occupation's delay in releasing the 7th batch of the Palestinian prisoners, calling it a flagrant breach of the exchange deal. Spokesman Abdulatif Al-Qanouh slammed the move as a deliberate provocation, while senior Hamas leader Bassem Naim warned that the delay places the Gaza ceasefire in serious jeopardy. Naim further stressed that this obstruction threatens the integrity of the entire agreement.
While Hamas has responded to the mediators' efforts to make the exchange process a success, Netanyahu continues to procrastinate and delay the release of prisoners, which represents a blatant violation of the agreement. The movement calls on the mediators and guarantors of the agreement to exert pressure on the occupation to respect the ceasefire agreement and implement its provisions without procrastination and delay.
Hamas has called on mediators and the international community to take a decisive stance against the Zionist occupation and enforce the Gaza ceasefire agreement. In a statement on Sunday, the group accused the occupation of breaching commitments and disregarding human values by obstructing the prisoner release. In a similar reaction, Palestinian factions have denounced the Zionist occupation's delay in releasing prisoners, accusing it of deceit and bad faith. The Palestinian Mujahideen brigades called on mediators to step up pressure, demanding the occupation fulfill its commitments, free the detainees, and respect humanitarian obligations.
We strongly condemn the enemy government's decision to delay the release of Palestinian prisoners after the resistance has fulfilled its obligations in the first phase of Al-Aqsa flood prisoner exchange deal. The decision comes after a series of lies and allegations, once again reflecting the deception and manipulation policy pursued by Netanyahu and his government in the prisoners' file to achieve his narrow personal goals and interests.
Similarly, the Palestinian Authority of Prisoners' Affairs and the Prisoners' Club condemned the Zionist occupation's delay in releasing the 7th batch of the Palestinian prisoners, denouncing it as organized terrorism. In a joint statement on Saturday, they accused the occupation of systematic abuse against detainees and their families, calling for urgent international intervention. Staying with Palestine-related news, the Zionist occupation's assault on Jenin has raged on for 34 days, leaving a trail of destruction, displacement, and bloodshed. Palestinian media report at least 120 homes reduced to rubble, 27 martyrs, and 160 arrests. On Sunday, the occupation escalated its offensive, deploying tanks near Jenin for the first time since 2002. Raids and mass arrests persist, especially in Yamun, where the occupation forces stormed homes and barred students from returning from school amid a heavy military presence. Meanwhile, the Zionist occupation's assault on Tulkarm enters its 28th day, with Nur Shams camp under siege for 15 days. On Saturday night, heavy military reinforcements, including bulldozers, poured into Tulkarm as forces raided Palestinian homes, turning them into military outposts. By Sunday, the occupation expanded its crackdown to Nablus, storming several neighborhoods, ransacking homes, and arresting 7 Palestinians, 6 from Deir el-Hatab and 1 at Zawata intersection. In a related development, the Zionist occupation has forcibly displaced residents from 3 Palestinian refugee camps in northern occupied West Bank. The Zionist Defense Minister has ordered forces to remain stationed in these camps year-round to prevent displaced Palestinians from returning. According to the Palestinian Information Center, nearly 40,000 Palestinians have been barred from going back to Jenin, Tulkarm, and Nur Shams camps, which have been largely destroyed and converted into military zones. Turning to Lebanon, tens of thousands gathered on Sunday to bid farewell to the late Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, nearly 5 months after his assassination in a Zionist airstrike on Beirut. A massive crowd filled a stadium in the southern suburbs for the funeral, marking a moment of both mourning and defiance. Meanwhile, as the ceremonies began, Lebanese media reported Zionist warplanes flying at low altitude over Beirut and its suburbs, heightening tensions in an already volatile atmosphere.
We will remain faithful to the legacy entrusted to us, and we will continue on this path. We will maintain your will. I will quote a sentence that we will chant 3 times while raising our fists. We are faithful to the pact, Nasrallah.
إنا على العهد يا نصر الله.
On Sunday morning, the Zionist occupation escalated its aggression on southern Lebanon, launching fresh air raids on Tyre, Nabatiyah, Baalbek and Erbil. The Lebanese news agency reported injuries from the strikes, which came just hours before the funeral of former Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, further inflaming tensions in the region. Shifting focus to Syria now, the Preparatory Committee for Syria's National Dialogue Conference has announced that the new Syrian authorities will open the conference on Tuesday to discuss the country's future. Over the past week, the committee consulted around 4,000 people nationwide to shape a vision for a constitutional declaration, economic framework, and institutional reforms, marking a pivotal step in Syria's political transition.
There is a remarkable presence for a wide spectrum of Syrians and the people of Aleppo, national figures, revolutionary figures, political figures, and even representatives of civil society. Many important recommendations and messages have been put forward on all levels, including economic, security, social justice, civil peace, and enhancing state accountability and transparency. The goal is to ensure true citizen participation, where the people became the supreme authority in the new Syria, as it rightfully deserves to be, God willing.
Still with Syria-related news, the Preparatory Committee for Syria's National Dialogue Conference announced on Sunday that invitations will be sent to participants inside and outside the country starting Monday. Speaking at a press conference in Damascus, the committee emphasized a broad national consensus identifying territorial unity, public and personal freedoms, and political rights as key priorities for Syria's future.
We will engage in dialogue with everyone, with all segments of the people, with those who were with us in the revolution and those who were not. If there is room to engage with them, it would have been preferable for these sessions to take place across multiple platforms, rather than in a single setting. But these are the resources we have at the moment. God willing, we will take a better step forward. God willing, things will improve. There will be a better dialogue with God's will.
Moving on to Morocco now, anti-normalization activists are calling for Moroccans fighting alongside the Zionist occupation to be classified as terrorists, similar to those who joined ISIS in Syria. Aziz Hanawi, Secretary General of the Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization, accused these fighters of committing massacres in Gaza and the West Bank. He also condemned Moroccan officials for undermining the country's sovereignty and identity in an effort to appease the Zionist entity.
If you consider them subjects of the commander of the faithful, they have committed crimes against the Palestinian people. 17,000 children and 50,000 martyrs. These are criminals, just like the Moroccans in ISIS. The Moroccans in ISIS are exactly like the Moroccans in Israel. Both are terrorists. But the ISIS of Israel is even more terrorizing than the ISIS of Syria. Among the young Moroccans who were led astray into terrorism, this is the argument. If Bourita lied to the Moroccan people and sought to pass normalization in the name of the commander of the faithful, then after the Al-Aqsa flawed, the lie was exposed. He neither judged the Zionist ISIS killers as criminals nor protected them.
In Algeria, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has ordered the development of a comprehensive plan to protect citizens' purchasing power for energy while expanding investments in the sector. According to a presidential statement following the cabinet meeting, Tebboune also mandated new control measures to bolster port security and restore their economic and strategic role. Additionally, he approved, in principle, an increase in student grants, with a final decision set for the next meeting. Minister Delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the Algerian National People's Army, Major General Said Chengriha, hailed Algeria's diplomatic achievements on both regional and international levels. Speaking at the inauguration of Major General Zubair Wila as the new Air Force commander, succeeding Major General Mahmoud La'araba, Chengriha emphasized that military diplomacy plays a key role in this strategy throughout high-level meetings and visits to friendly nations.
غير دائما أو عزة لبلادنا بهذه المناسبة الإشادة والتنويه.
On this occasion, I would like to highlight and emphasize the active momentum that our diplomacy has recently experienced, aligned with the wise directives of the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, and Minister of National Defense. This momentum has enabled Algeria to strengthen its presence at both international and continental levels, whether through our country's notable activities within the framework of the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member, or by increasing its representation in the mechanisms and organizations of the African Union, reflecting the importance Algeria places on its African depth.
The
Sudanese army announced on Sunday that it has taken control of the strategic city of Qatina, south of Khartoum. A military force from the east entered the city, a key crossing point between North and South Khartoum. Footage shared by local activists showed army soldiers deployed in the area. Meanwhile, Sudanese Foreign Minister Ali Yusuf firmly rejects any foreign recognition of the parallel government formed by the Rapid Support Forces and allied groups after their charter signing in Nairobi. DR Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has announced plans to establish a national unity government following the M23 movement's takeover of large areas in the east. Presidential spokesman Tina Salama confirmed that Tshisekedi will also reshuffle the ruling Sacred Union coalition in response to growing opposition criticism over his handling of the M23 offensive, which has left North and South Kivu under armed group control for weeks. To Russia-Ukraine file now. As the war enters its third year, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reportedly offered to step down if it secures Ukraine NATO membership. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has hinted at a potential ceasefire, while Vladimir Putin remains adamant, vowing no retreat. Yasin Erkti reports now.
On the eve of the war's third anniversary, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he's willing to resign if it ensures Ukraine's NATO accession.
If it's about peace in Ukraine, and you really want me to leave my position, I'm ready to do that. Secondly, I can exchange it for NATO. If there is such an opportunity, I'll do it immediately without a long conversation about it. I'm focused on Ukraine's security today, and not in 20 years. I don't plan to be in power for decades. Therefore, that's my aim and my dream.
This came hours after Donald Trump claimed a ceasefire deal was very close. Trump, speaking at CPAC, criticized past U.S. leadership and revealed talks on a deal involving Ukraine's mineral revenues.
I'm dealing with President Putin. I'm trying to get the money back the United States has given. $350 billion. Because we had a stupid, incompetent president and administration. We're going to get our money back because it's not fair. It's just not fair. And we will see. But I think we're pretty close to a deal, and we better be close to a deal.
Meanwhile, Moscow remains defiant. Putin, celebrating Defender of the Fatherland Day, declared Russia is achieving its goals and vowed to strengthen its military. However, the Kremlin reiterated it will never sell occupied Ukrainian land.
Уважаемые товарищи, сегодня в условиях...
Dear comrades, today in the face of rapid changes in the world, our strategic course towards strengthening and developing the armed forces remains unchanged. We will continue to improve the combat capabilities of the Army and Navy, their combat readiness as an essential component of ensuring Russia's security, a guarantee of its sovereign present and future, and its progressive development. Ensuring the real needs of the troops participating in the special military operation is among the absolute priorities.
Globally, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged a peace deal respecting Ukraine's territorial integrity. Meanwhile, the UK is preparing its toughest sanctions on Russia since the war began. With Moscow calling Putin-Trump talks promising, the stage is set for high-stakes diplomacy. Will a breakthrough come, or is it the war far from over?
In Europe still, Germany's upcoming election is expected to see Friedrich Merz's conservatives reclaim power, signaling a rightward shift in Europe's economic powerhouse. Amid economic struggles and growing public dissatisfaction with the current government, voters appear to be gravitating toward conservative leadership. Safian Katuri reports.
Germans headed to the polls this Sunday in decisive election, with the conservative opposition poised for a comeback. Friedrich Merz, leader of Christian Democrats, appears well positioned to take the reins from Social Democrat Olaf Scholz, with final polls placing his party at around 30% of the vote.
I believe so. Friedrich Merz understands economics, and I think he needs to rebuild our country. So much has been lost. It's a shame, but Germany is a beautiful country, and our hope lies in bringing it back on track.
The mood, however, is not universally optimistic. Concerns are mounting over the rise of the far-right alternative for Germany, which is projected to secure at least 20%, double its 2021 result, and an all-time high.
For me, it's crucial that calm is restored. We need all parties to find common ground so that Germany can regain its standing and bring back security.
As Germans elect a new Bundestag, stability and security remains at the heart of voters' concerns.
That's huge considering the AfD and the Poles. If they gain more power, the future looks bleak.
Yet even with a conservative victory, forming a government in Germany's complex parliamentary system could take weeks, if not months, delaying much-needed policies to jumpstart Europe's largest economy. After 2 consecutive years of contraction and mounting global competition, businesses are eager for swift action, but for now, Germany waits.
Torrential rains have battered Botswana's capital, Gaborone, submerging roads and homes in severe flooding. Emergency teams are on the ground responding to the crisis as the provisional death toll reaches 7. More details with Zahra for Jenin now.
The human toll is devastating. 7 lives lost as torrential rains continue to batter Botswana's capital, Gaborone, unleashing massive floods and widespread destruction. Flash floods have turned streets into raging torrents, submerging entire neighborhoods under a relentless deluge. Schools have been forced to shut their doors, and key roads now resembling rivers have collapsed or been swept away, carrying everything in their path.
There was water all over, be it the garage, the lounge, the dining room, all over, up to my bedroom. We couldn't do much, but just watch and wait for the water to go away.
Emergency services are in overdrive, scrambling to locate the missing and assist those in distress. The government has declared a national emergency, but insists the situation has not yet escalated to the level of full-scale national disaster.
Where we are currently is we have a national emergency. We have not yet reached national disaster. I think that is the upside of currently. All hands are on deck, and this can only help us come out bigger, better, and stronger as a nation. And obviously, we have not yet reached national disaster.
Amid the turmoil, acts of solidarity are shining through. Organizations like the Botswana-China Friendship Association are stepping in to provide relief, distributing food and essential supplies to those hardest hit.
We want to assure you that our contributions may seem small. They come from a place of the deep care and commitment. We stand with the government and the peoples of Botswana, and we will continue to contribute to the development of our country.
As Gaborone struggles to recover, the disaster serves as a reminder of the urgent need to strengthen infrastructure against the rising threat of extreme weather. With more heavy rains forecast through next week, authorities are urging national solidarity because weathering this storm will take everyone working together.
And that brings us to the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.